Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Fahrbach. The second round of U.S.-Iran nuclear talks opens in Geneva on Tuesday as oil traders track naval exercises near one of the world's most critical energy choke points, the Strait of Hormuz. Now, oil prices have shown sharp two-way moves, reflecting how closely market sentiment is tied to diplomatic signals rather than pure supply and demand. Now, to discuss it all further, we're joined by Heinz Gärtner, professor of political science at the University of Vienna. Good to have you back on TVP World, Professor.
Morning.
I want to begin with setting the stage here. I mean, this is the second round. In your mind, just briefly tell us, first of all, what are your expectations? Will we have some kind of deal? What are the ultimate goals here of these two sides, in your opinion?
The best outcome we can expect is there will be an agreement on what it will be negotiated. So on the nuclear issue, there will be the level of enrichment, the stockpiles, the centrifuges, and much more. Should the missiles, Iran's missile capacity be included in the negotiations now or later in another round of negotiations, and also concerning Iran's support of the so-called proxies, his allies, should Iran reduce its support before negotiations, not at all, or after the negotiations? And fourth, of course, sanction relief. Which sanctions should be relieved? Where should sanction relief go? Should the assets be unfreezed? Should the sanctions go to the increase of the life of the Iranian people, increase so reduce the suppression. So that's all these issues are on the table. And if there's an agreement, what will be negotiated, what will be included, and what will be discussed later on would be a success. If there is no agreement, so that would be further procrastination, and also the military threat by the US will remain.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about that pressure for a moment. The United States, as we know right now, already has one carrier group in that region, apparently a second one on the way. I mean, the Iranians and the world will remember some months ago, you had bombings by the Americans of Iranian territory. Does this kind of show of pressure in your mind, does this bring Iran closer to accepting compromise? Is this going to push them away? How much does the military, let's say, show of force here, really by both sides, or mainly by the United States, affect these negotiations?
Of course, that's what the Trump administration thinks. So they get more concessions by Iran through military pressure, and it gets stronger and stronger. If there is no agreement at all, and Iran will not make any concessions on the four issues I mentioned before, President Trump is in a difficult situation, because then he has to keep his word and he has to do something military, which consequences nobody really can predict. And also maybe Israel will join it in. And also, of course, American bases are in danger, because Iran threatened to strike them as well. And also the regional other Gulf states, they're afraid they are involved as well. So it could be a regional war, which Trump doesn't really want, because he doesn't want to send ground troops at all. So he could not really sell this at home. So he is now then in a really difficult situation to do something or to retreat. So that's what Iran is speculating about. But it's a very risky game by Iran, because eventually it could come to a military confrontation.
Mm-hmm. I also want to ask you, because we've had the Iranian foreign minister also obviously on the ground there, and ahead of the talks, he actually met with the head of the IAEA, so the International Atomic Agency. Now, those talks were apparently said to be technical, but what kind of role, I mean, in the past, the IAEA has been involved in all this. Could you see, let's say, could they play a role in any kind of, let's say, deal here in their verification process of the nuclear program the Iran has? Could they be key in all this? What's your take on that?
The IAEA doesn't have a political role at all, so it is not involved in any political decision making, and it was not already during the negotiations on the nuclear deal JCPOA before 2015. However, the IAEA has a role to monitor results of an agreement, and also to make clear that Iran is meeting the requirements of the Comprehensive Safeguards Agreement, so to send a signal to the US and to the Europeans, Iran is applying to the basic safeguards agreement. But IAEA's role will be, after an agreement, to monitor the results. And the JCPOA was of 2015 was a very comprehensive deal with a very far-reaching monitoring system. So that's what the IAEA would be supposed to do, and to make clear that Iran abides to the results of an agreement.
Mm-hmm. I also want to jump back on the issue of enrichment. This is a tricky one because on the one hand, we have the Iranians who said that if they do not, or rather they don't want to compromise on this issue at all, they want to continue enrichment of some kind. We've had pressure also from the Israelis, with Prime Minister Netanyahu saying that they want to completely dismantle the enrichment capabilities of Iran. So you have these two opposing forces here. Is there a middle ground to any of this?
Of course, there can be safe-facing agreements. For example, that Iran stops enrichment for a couple of years, because now the enrichment is zero anyway after the strikes last June, the military strikes. So maybe then resume the enrichment on a very low level, about 3.67%, like agreed in the JCPOA, or even lower, so that Iran could say, I still can enrich, and that was a success of the negotiations. If the US and Israel behind it would insist on a zero enrichment, it would be difficult for Iran to sell this at home as well. And so there is a room of compromise. Of course, Iran has maximal requests now that it at least keeps the enrichment to 20%, which is way beyond that what under JCPOA has been agreed. And also, Iran has to ship out this 400 kilograms highly enriched uranium by 60% to another country. So far, Iran is not willing to do this at all. So Iran has to make some concessions on this field, of course.
Mm-hmm. And also, speaking about Iran more specifically, I mean, they've been under immense pressure also internally. I mean, we've seen what's happened there also domestically. We've seen the population rise up, also the immense crackdown. But generally, we see a population that's suffering, that's in need of sanctions relief. How realistic is, and where would you see any kind of sanctions relief come from the U.S. and the Europeans in any of this?
Of course, the population suffers, and that was a large part, of course, of the demonstrations. And a sanction relief would improve the standard of living of the Iranian people, of course, and would put pressure out of the protests as well. But if there is a substantial sanction relief, the sanctions, there has to be a condition by the West that the sanctions should go to the relief of the to the improvement of the Iranians' standard of living and not to the proxies. So sanctions has to be directed and there has to be conditions on the sanctions relief. Of course, the goal is to improve the life of the Iranians. And if that is possible, of course, it would be already a success. And there is a link then between the Iranian situation of the Iranian population and the nuclear talks. That what Secretary of State Rubio also requested. So there would be a possibility of agreement if Iran makes its concessions.
Mm-hmm. All right. And what if the scenario does happen, and let's say if we can call it these talks in 2 days' time will fail, what's the next step in your mind? Do we get more? Because earlier you said there might be more negotiations. Would there be some sort of stalemate? Would there be some technical pause? Will we have escalation? What do you think is the most likely scenario if these talks go south?
The worst case scenario is, of course, that Israel goes ahead with a military strike and expects the US to follow a situation what we had already in June last year. Probably, which is a better scenario if there is no agreement now, that there's some signaling from both sides for a next round of negotiations, that this or that there could be compromises made on the 4 issues I mentioned: nuclear, missiles, proxies, and sanctions. So that would be a procrastination or a delay of the negotiations. That would be the best outcome if there is no general agreement. Of course, I have to say, if there is agreement, there is no agreement yet, because there is will be a very cumbersome process of sequencing, which comes first, sanctions relief or the reduction of the Iranian nuclear program. So we had this already in 2020.
I'm going to have to jump in there, yeah. So many complicated sequencing, timing options. Will be, of course, covering it as it develops. Thank you so much, Professor Heinz Gärtner there from the University of Vienna.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you for watching. Stay tuned right here on TVP World for more. Goodbye.